So I'm here with George Kavassilas in the Gold Coast of Australia. So thank you, George, for coming in to be interviewed here and be part of the Exonews TV program.
Yeah, Michael, thank you. I was thrilled when you sent me an email, and yeah, I feel honoured to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a beautiful part of the country. Now, I know that you've had a lot of contract experiences, and I know people would like to kind of understand your background a little. So maybe we could begin with your contacts with different extraterrestrial groups and greys around the age of 5, and what they were doing to you and why.
So the ones I can remember as far back as I can, around the age of 5, 6, around that age group. And they used to come through my wardrobe, funny enough. Through the closet, a portal would open up there. And it would be your very classic, typical grey looking entity. However, there were 2 types of greys that were interfering with me at that time of my life. And the other one was, so one was more of a robotoid that we used to sort of android looking one, which they serve somebody beyond. But then there was this other group of greys, which were a group of humans who branched off from our timeline around this time, chose the path of technology, went through a huge time loop of over 1 million years of evolution and came back. And because they chose the path of technology, all their body parts atrophied. And the kind of the muscle that was then left was the cranium, because the focus was mind and mind-based technologies. And they were educating me or bringing to my awareness that you kind of want to think about giving your power over to technology. You might want to rethink that. And it was lessons they taught me over about a decade. And it was interesting because when I got into my early teens, I got into computer games. And they paid me another visit. And they were like, look at us, you know, they're really trying to get the message across to me. And they're like, do you want to be like this? You know, stop giving your power over to technology. You don't understand where it could lead to if you do that. So they're very passionate about helping humanity, that group of greys. And then there's other group of greys that are plant-based. So we've got quite a few different kinds. So going back to when I was like 5 and 6, the only thing I could think of that why they would be interested in me has to do with the ability for the ruling elite and certain ET groups to map out what our journeys or what our fundamental purpose in life is going to be, and to have some sort of influence in that. So I've got lots of marks across here where I've had a whole lot of procedures done to me. Most of them I can't remember because they screen the memory. So there's the memory of them coming into my room, the memory of them taking me. I've got some memories of being in craft, for example, some not so pleasant, some very pleasant. But the interest that they have in people such as myself and others, possibly even you, Michael, is wanting to understand people's journeys so then they can calibrate the individual to then calibrate the greater reality, because we are the creative beings, and they want to apprehend our creative process for their benefit, for their purposes.
Thanks. What about government interest in these contacts that you're having at a young age? When did you notice, or did you notice any kind of government interest in what was happening to you?
You see, it was an interesting parallel thing, because my father was involved in something behind the scenes. Now I've mapped it back to, he disappeared around 1970 to Dayton, Ohio, and for 6 months. And after he came back from that, we used to get Men in Black coming and visiting the house. And my mother told me the story of how one day the Men in Black suits turned up at the house. My father had quite a stressed and fear look on his face. He grabbed my mother by the shoulder and took her to the back of the house and said, "Whatever you do, don't come out." And he went and answered the door, and my mother couldn't help herself, so she kind of snuck sort of towards getting in sort of within ear pitch, but not too much of a visual, because she didn't want them to see her. And my father was saying to them, "I told you never to come here. It wasn't part of our agreement, blah, 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 blah." And my father was also one of the leading, at the time in the 60s, was one of the leading computer engineers with a company called NCR. So I've spoken to other relatives who my father confided in, and I told them what I've mapped out, that I feel that somewhere my father was involved in the back engineering in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, somewhere there. And my cousin confirmed it and validated it, that I was right. And I've had my father passed over nearly 20 years ago now, and I've had also communication with my father since, which also has validated a lot of what I've known. And unfortunately, after my cousin validated these things to me, he passed away 6 weeks later. So, and I don't think it's associated directly with that. I think there was other things, other issues involved. Why that happened. I've been followed a lot in my life. I gave up the game a long time ago of worrying about getting followed, of worrying about trying to keep private. I just don't care. I'm not going to play that game. The more they surveil me, the more they prove to me how frightened of me they are. And that's the way it really works. And you just, I call them out all the time. They're, the reason they feel the need to surveil people and to watch people is because they're terrified. And that's why you have a system that pumps out terror, terror, terror all the time, because it's an expression of what it is, of what's going on inside it. And I have a really good understanding of who we all are and why we're on the planet and what we are here to do. And I understand why they are terrified of us, because what we are here to do is to create something really incredible.
With your father, do you think he was a contactee himself? I mean, if they were interested in him and took him to Dayton Air Force Base to work on some of these classified programs, then they thought that he had the inside scoop on some of these kind of advanced aerospace technologies that they were seeking. So, did he get this information through his own creative genius, or was he a contactee?
I have no knowing of him being a contactee. There also has to do with our bloodline as well. So on my father's side, the bloodline goes back to patriarchal priestly kings back through the Byzantine and beyond. My cousins in Greece tracked it back to I think as far back as 65 AD or something like that. It goes a very, very long way back. And there was, so prominent ancestors.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's the bloodline issue. Of course, conspiratorial drama heads are going to go, oh, he's got to be reptilian blood because only reptilians are bloodliners. Well, that's not the case, and I'm no more reptilian to everybody who's watching this. And of course there was these funny videos made to make me look like I'm a reptilian years ago on the internet, because it's all about character assassination. So the reptilians are the new devil. It's the it's all part of the psyop onto the human psyche. Yeah, that's the game that's being played on all of us. Yeah. So so the bloodline issue is one, and they're tracking all the bloodlines. And when a person incarnates, they also know how everything's lined up. So they also look at, the moment of birth. They look at the moment of conception. They use all these skills, if you want to put it that way, or crafts, to try and work out, as babies come into the world, who's going to be doing what. And then they team up. So I'm talking about they's the ruling elite now, and they team up with certain interdimensional and extraterrestrial groups who then help them to map out the history of the person, galactically speaking. So which star systems do they come from, which star systems do they currently inhabit in parallel lives, what are their skill sets, what skill sets do they bring into the world, and then they work out the best plan, they formulate the best plan on how to manipulate a person. Because we're seen as really valuable assets.
Right.
Yeah.
So as you were going through school, did you display any kind of special abilities? Were there any differences with the normal kids?
In my early years, anything I applied myself to, I was just straight A student in my early years. And then once the Greys started abducting me more, then I lost focus and I lost my ability to concentrate. I was even a really good athlete. Anything in sport that I applied myself at, I excelled very quickly, and then boom, I was shut down. So I was a competition swimmer. When I got to the age of 16, shut down. I was doing really good times as a 16-year-old, and I was going to go to state championships and then go on. I was a competition squash player. Had no formal training whatsoever. Got as far as B3 men's in the Sydney competition and A1 in the ACT competition, which after that is state and then national. So, anything I've applied myself at, I've done really well at.
Was there any attempt by the Australian military to recruit you? Did they approach you in any way, saying that you had certain abilities or skills that they were interested in?
No, because they're already using me behind the scenes.
I see.
So they didn't need to do it on the stage arena, in the public domain, in other words. So they already use children behind the scenes. There's a movie called Gamer, I think it is, where they use the children to play these games, and it's like they're fighting. Right. And they're making it out as though they're just playing a game, but they're actually using real weapons, and they don't tell the kids till the end that this is not a practice run. This has been real all along.
Kind of like Ender's Game.
That's it. That's the movie I was thinking of, Ender's Game. So these sorts of operations have been running for quite some time.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. So you never noticed kind of Australian military personnel kind of watching, taking an interest in you at all, or anything like that?
No. No. I've had a lot of weird behavioural scenarios with people. Very strange. But no military, like obvious military people.
Okay.
No. I've had other. It's more, more people who are more to do with not upfront military, more the hidden agenda, control systems into the brotherhoods and the occult sort of thing, are the ones that behave very strangely in my presence.
In your book, Our Universal Journey, you describe a number of things which we'll be discussing during the interview, but one of the things you mentioned was being tortured by the secret government. Yeah. Can you describe what happened?
Yeah. it wasn't so much the secret government, although that is one group that did do that. More of it happened with associated extraterrestrial groups because of the technology that they were using. The one thing I discovered, in my book, I explain the way the universe is structured, and there's this really thick membrane. I call it the Great Void. A lot of races call it the Great Void. And what the God entity is doing, I'm talking about now the entity that is known to people as the God of religions, all religions. It all goes back to this one entity, who's not the creator of this universe, but is claiming to be. Okay, that's the truth of it. That's reality. Whatever's going on in people's minds when they hear that, that's your problem, that's your belief system, but I'll just share with you the absolute fact of reality. Mm-hmm. How you deal with it's up to you. So we got these beings that are a part of that vast multi-dimensional empire, which is what I call the God Matrix. It's vast, really vast. And they're trying to crack access through the Great Void into other dimensional realms in the universe. And it's a game they've been trying for time immemorial. And because we are a fractal of the Earth, and the Earth is a fractal of the solar system, and the solar system is a fractal of the galaxy, and our galaxy is a fractal of the universe. This is the way the galactic reality, the solar reality, the Earth, and then the human construct, it's a nesting of fractal energies, universal energies. So you are a walking universe, for example. All the cells in your body are galaxies, countless trillions of them, and all the star systems are the atoms. And what sits before me here is the sum total of everything you have seen, done, and been in this universe. So everything you are in this universe is blending into unity right there in that body. That's what this reality does. That's what it's about. And because they know that, what they're trying to do is access realms within the universe they don't normally access, but they want to try and do it through us. So they want to use us to access realities they can't access through our internal, because we're like this stargate, this cosmic stargate. That's what our bodies are to the universe. And of course our consciousness can do it, our awareness can do it, our spirit can do it, where our consciousness can reach most realities, but you've got to go beyond consciousness to get to the real stuff. You've got to get to what I call soul. It's like beingness. Right. To me that's, other people think soul is something very low in the hierarchical model, but to me soul is home within myself. And then from soul is projected consciousness and spirit. And in 2003 I had a very deep experience which absolutely showed that to me without any doubt.
Well, before we get to that experience, maybe just to kind of clarify this whole thing about the secret government, torture and all of that.
So I did that, and that was really painful because it was interfering in my whole construct. Now they had technology that was trying to do that. But if I can give an analogy, there was a show called Stargate SG-1, and the Gold, which were the reptilians, they used to have a probe that they would poke someone with, and it would really cause them a lot of pain and all that. They didn't have exactly that technology, but I'm just giving you something that you can somewhat relate to as to what the experience was like. And it would take me at least a week to recover from that because it was so painful. It's like all your life force is drained out of you. and it really interferes with you on such deep levels when they try that on you. Another time I was on a bench, quite a large room, and there were different ET personnel there, and then there was military personnel as well, and there was this hybrid human extraterrestrial hybrid, wispy red hair. It was like someone loses their hair from chemo treatment or something, and there's lots of gaps, like the hair is really thin. It was like that. Very pointy nose, very bony cheeks, and I was being raped. And this was being really a tough one to deal with, because on one level they stimulate you so much that it is the ultimate. Like the average guy would be going, oh yeah, I want some of that, but you need to understand that it's not. Oh, okay, so on one level you are stimulated beyond imagination. Your sexual desire, your sexual body is stimulated off the charts. Yeah, and you want to have sex so much. It's just unimaginable what state they put you in. And then there's this other layer where I was in total horror because I was being violated. I was being raped by this female hybrid. And all these guys were standing around there watching. So there was a part of me that was in absolute horror, and I couldn't. It took me a while to reconcile from that level. And then I went into another level where it was my greater being was present, and I was in just unconditional love. And that part of me was keeping the ego personality of George. It's okay, you're going to be all right, all that sort of stuff. So I was split into 3 different levels during that process, and that took a long time to reconcile that one.
Right, and so it wasn't as though they were kind of seeking specific information from you. It was more just to basically access experiences or memories or something that that they were seeking, but not necessarily anything cognitively that you were aware of. I mean, they were just doing things to get answers, and that the torture was a part of that process.
The torture was seeking knowledge and access. There are other groups who have taken me and tried to extract information out of me to use me. Like I get a lot of people that would meet up with me. Someone would just, someone would bump into an aeroplane. Like I had this one guy, for example, he was in his late 20s and he had a scruffed up book, David Icke book. It was roughed up. So like he'd been carrying it around for a long time. And he just interrogated me the whole time on the plane. And I knew straight away he was a plant. And I used to get that a lot. I used to get people planted next to me in planes all the time. Because it's entrapment. You got where you're going to go, what are you going to,
right.
And then they've got time to work you. I had another lady who was a Sufi, really high up in the Sufi. She was also had master's degree in psychiatry, master's degree in psychology, and she totally put me through the ringer for a good 2.5 to 3 hours on a plane. And at the end of it, she said, I said, I suppose you think I'm schizophrenic? She said, no. I said to her, look, I'm a multi-dimensional being. She says, I know. She said, you're fully present in all of your expressions. It's you in each of the expressions. It's different versions of you, but it's you. There's no alternate personalities stepping in, coming in and moving out. And I say that to people when I do my live events. I say, I'm a multi-dimensional being, and and I'm integrating into unity with all my aspects in the universe. So there's going to be different parts of me that will express different things. So you'll feel my energy shift, but it's all me. I'm not a channeler. I don't do that sort of stuff. not interested in channeling. Yeah.
We'll have a couple of questions about the Moon and Mars, but before going there, I mean, should we go into there first, or talk about the 2003 experience?
I'm happy to go in any direction you like, Michael. Yeah, wherever.
Okay.
Wherever
Well, we'll keep that. Maybe we'll just go through this flow. So maybe just tell us first about the Moon. I mean, that you were taken to the Moon and you saw things, and
that was a really powerful experience. Yeah. Excuse me.
Yeah. So just tell us a little bit about what you experienced, what you saw there.
Do you want the long version?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So that one there's detail because it started with me laying on my bed, and I was sometimes I'm a tummy sleeper, and I was woken by my greater being, and and when I come out, when my greater being says, George, wake up, it's like I'm fully awake, I'm present instantly. There's no what, it's straight out. Okay, something's going on, and this has happened over and over again. And said, roll. Sorry, I was on my back at the time, and my greater being said, roll onto your tummy. So I rolled on my tummy, and I was, pretending to be asleep, and then I could see the beings either side of my bed, and then I levitated off my bed. Then they turned me around, and I still had my eyes closed, and then I started going through my window, and I was about halfway through my window. Like, I'll give you an example how that happens, because the window was shut, and I was halfway through the window. When another time in the Greys, I went to a Sydney UFO conference in the late 90s, and there was all these people trying to do mind control in the crowd, and I was one of the people at the back of the room who just wouldn't stand for it, because there was like a whole group of us, our heads were just hurting, and it was all NLP, and it was all, pardon the expression, but there was a real head fuck going on in that. And I called the guy out. I said, "You've got to stop what you're doing." I said, "I know what you're doing." I said, "We all know what you're doing." And I said, but the rest of the crowd, which was, another 100 or so people, they had no idea what he was doing. And he was just mind controlling people. You got to be careful of some of the people that, do these talks, because they stand up on stage and, something else is going on. So I stood up so much that he had to walk off stage, because he kept doing it. Every time he went to speak, he was doing it, and he wouldn't stop doing it. And so I disrupted things that they wanted to do there. And there was another guy with me too. And because of that, when I got back to South Australia at my house, that very first night I had Greys turn up. And I was in a sandstone house where the walls are 2.5 feet thick, solid stone. And they just shimmered. The walls just shimmered, and the Greys just came marching through. Because we create a tin can to go into another reality. So down into the ocean, we'll create an elongated tin can, so we can take our reality, our atmospheric pressures, the reality with the vibration that we exist in, everything, into that reality. Because we can't exist in that reality on its own, right? So we're going to take our reality with us, and we do it physically with force, yeah? But they don't operate that way. They bring their reality with them by manipulating other realities. So they don't need an exoskeletal construct, you know what I mean? And their reality can be malleable, and sometimes they can just periodically, temporarily just blend with our reality, and then they blend back out. It's really fascinating how they do it.
So were they the ones that were doing the abduction, or taking it to the moon?
This was a different group.
Okay.
This is a different group. But I share this one because I wanted you to understand how solid walls can just shimmer, and they can just walk straight through. So now back to the other abduction, which is the moon one, and I'm halfway out a window. So I've got, I'm floating in the air, and I went through like a window like that, out, and I could still see the glass here, but there was like a fuzz going on, and I opened my eyes, and there's this little olive green monkey sort of guy staring at me. It wasn't a grey. and he smiled at me. And he had lots of little teeth, but teeth like ours. They weren't fangs, they weren't... I know in a lot of the Vedic stuff, they've got the little monkey beings, but they've got sharp fangs, right? These were like olives, dark olive green skin, little, kind of like monkey beings, but they had eyes like ours, round. Sorry, ours are a little bit elliptical, theirs were more round, and lots of little teeth. And then he knew I was awake, because they monitor your state of consciousness the whole time. And then he just waved his hand and I blanked out. It was like a Jedi sort of thing. They just do, have some sort of power over your consciousness. And everything that happens to us happens because our greater being lets them do it. I just got to reiterate that, yeah? So, next thing I know, I'm on a hard bench. And just laying there in a room, and it was shaped with a wall down there similar to this, but that wall went on an angle to the door, and then there was a really long corridor down to another corridor that ran off it. So from there to the other corridor would have been about 25 metres. It was a long way. And I just sat up. I woke up and I sat up, and I had 3 of these guys around me, 2 and 1, and they completely freaked out. And they're trying to put me under again, and they couldn't. And I was like, really present. Not just George, it was big me. I call it big me. It was like really lots of soul expression, lots of me in the body, more of my greater being, present. And I've had a lot of these sorts of experiences. And they couldn't put me under. And then I get hit. So they go running out and I get hit with this energy beam. And I could feel all the heat just off my body with all this energy, because they're trying to hit me with all this energy to put me under again, to knock me out. And they couldn't do it. My being was just not letting them. And
by they, you mean like, were they humans or extraterrestrials on the moon? In some facility?
So at this stage, this is when I started realising where I was. And the one interesting thing about it was, do you remember Jose Escamilla?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I talked about this experience way before Jose Escamilla got access to all these photos to do with the moon, and he said what's really strange is there was a structure on the moon and there was like a little monkey guy climbing on the edge of the structure. He actually said that in an interview. Now, I can't remember, I really wish I had actually taken that snippet of audio so I could play it to people and go, see? So, and I think a lot of people get it mixed up with the Greys, these little monkey guys. But they're like little worker guys on the moon. Olive green skin. So, I'm now standing, I get off the bench and I'm standing, and all this energy is just being beamed at me, because they could do it through other places. They don't have to have someone in the room firing a ray gun. It doesn't work like that, because it's like, how you can feel there's something odd in your body, it's there, and so imagine being able just to focus in that area, for example, and then just beaming it with energy. So it's like the whole reality of the moon is monitored. And even like well outside the moon is monitored too. Like the whole moon matrix around the Earth is monitored. But just to give you an example, the moon itself is a reality, yeah? And it's not what it used to be, but even what it is now, it is occupied by a consciousness, by a intelligence. So that whole reality is a living life force. And that living life force is constantly monitored. So the entity that is there and the beings that are inside the moon that are connected in unity with that consciousness that now inhabits the moon and runs that reality, they knew exactly what I was doing, because they could feel I was standing up. They could feel that I was resisting all the technology being beamed at me. So then what happened was the technology just stopped, And then the head guy, who was a Draco, kind of like, well, I'll tell you later because I actually ended up running into him. He started beaming me one-on-one directly because nothing they had in the way of technology worked. So I then just became determined to seek this guy out. So I start walking through walls. Now I can't do this now, but we have the capacity to do this stuff, right? It's amazing what when we're really present, when there's so much more of our beingness present in our bodies, this is what they're terrified of, right? I was just walking through walls and I was just making a beeline for this guy. And he just kept blasting me with everything he's got, and in unity with the entity that inhabits the moon. They were throwing everything they had at me. And I walked straight up to this guy. My greater being was just keeping it all at bay. I wasn't running this from my mind as George. I was not running that show. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
The part of me that made the decision to incarnate here, to have this incarnation, that was the part of me that was running that. Yeah, not the earthly personality of George. Yeah, we are multidimensional beings, and when our greater being becomes present, we are capable of the most amazing things. There's nothing we can't do, really.
I just wanted to kind of like, because an interesting issue you raised there is the moon having a consciousness or being ensouled in some way, because many people think of the moon as an artificial body or a kind of refugee ship or something like that, but you experience the moon as actually having a consciousness, a spirit.
Millions of people around the world do.
I see.
That's why they do moon worshipping on a regular basis. Yeah, because they worship the entity that's...
Right, and that you were able to do these things on the moon when you're taking it because your higher consciousness kind of kicked in and began communicating and working with the moon consciousness.
My beingness beyond consciousness. So I'm just going to make that point absolutely clear, because there's this thing on the planet at the moment that consciousness is everything, and that's bullshit. If you think consciousness is all you are, then you're being very limiting upon yourself, because consciousness is mind energy, universal mind energy. We've got to get clear about things. Otherwise you're going to get caught up in the narratives which are big psyops. It's like you need to understand the reason behind narratives that are being pumped into our psyche and the agendas behind them. You know, I know I exist beyond consciousness. Consciousness is not all I am. Yeah? Consciousness is a necessary part of my existence in this universe. It's the interface between soul and the manifestation process. It's mind.
Right, so your higher being...
My greater being was from my soul expression, the part of me that's in unity with the real creator of this universe, and also in unity with my infinite nature beyond this universe. So this is what I'm talking about, was intention was fully present in my body, and to the point where it doesn't matter what presents itself in the universe, if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, then nothing can stop me from doing it. It's just, that's how it is. It's you need to understand soul level agreements on a universal scale. Yeah, and you've got ego constructs that function on a much more shallow level. They don't have the depth and the range and capacity as a soul level agreement, where you're in total unity with the universal creator and you're functioning in a particular way. Then if you've got an ego construct that thinks it can stop you, then it's delusional. It's a self-delusional construct, yeah? Which we've all experienced. I've thought I could do things, and then I was abruptly shown I couldn't, because I was functioning from a distorted ego perspective. And I'm sure you have in life, we all have in life, right? So, I'm not a sanctimonious asshole when it comes to the reality of life, okay? I've got a lot of crap to work through still in life, I assure you of that. So I'm walking through the walls and I'm making a beeline for this guy. And it got to the point where there was just one more translucent wall between me and this guy. And by the way, there's no concrete structures on the moon. Anyone talks about concrete structures on the moon, they're full of shit, because that reality does not support those kind of molecular constructs. Yeah? Things are grown. Buildings are grown. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's in unity on a level of consciousness with certain aspects of the mineral kingdoms, and you work together with the consciousness of the mineral kingdom, and you make an agreement to work together, and the being will replicate itself and it will grow. And that's how buildings are constructed on the moon. That's how buildings are constructed in other dimensions on the Earth. That's how buildings, if you need them, are constructed in other planetary worlds. So here we are, we've got this translucent wall, and you know, it's a living life force as well. And he's on the other side, he's given it everything he's got, and then he just stops. And I said, now do you understand? And he said, yes. I said, I'm going to walk through this last wall. I'm just telling you. Yeah. And then I walked through the wall, and he's drained of it. He gave me everything he got.
And this is a Draconian.
This is a Draconian Lord who was the head of the entire moon station.
So we're talking like an 8 foot, 9 foot, 10 foot tall?
No, we're talking about a guy who's about 7 foot tall.
Mm-hmm.
Long hair, bony structure on the face, very humanoid looking, and a long gown. He looked very similar to the Wraith in Stargate SG-1. Very similar to that. I was taken by surprise, actually, at what that being looked like. And I said, now do you understand? And he said, yes. And what I meant by that was that when we, I'm just going to look straight down the barrel for this bit, when we really step into our true nature, our true humanity, which means to be a universal being, doesn't matter what they think they can do, they can't stop us. And me having that experience was part of my responsibility in this lifetime to send that message to the Empire, saying that when we switch on, like in other words, when we step into our power, whenever that will be, whether it's in 3 years' time or 5 or 10, I don't know, but it's coming. It's coming. They got no chance at all in stopping us. Nothing can stop us. And that was the big message.
Right. You also had an experience on Mars, being taken to Mars. So can you describe what happened in that case?
Yeah. So I find myself standing on the edge of a lagoon on Mars, a water lagoon. And straight away, when you're in these experiences, you know exactly where you are. There's no someone coming up.
Were you physically taken there? Or?
Yeah, physically taken there.
Again, a similar sort of thing, like some ETs just kind of took you from your home?
No, this was different. This was going into an underground installation and then stepping on a platform. Now, here's the interesting thing about a platform. You have to give your will over to it. So, if somebody just beams you without you being aware of it, it's got to be a really high level of technology. But if it's done by a piece of level of technology which hasn't the capacity to understand your construct from a soul, spiritual and consciousness level, and it's just doing it from a mechanical level, then it can get really messy. So people have to be trained. In the early days, people were trained. So this happened, over a decade ago. And in the early days, people were trained to be able to transport from one place to another on these things, because you have to give your will to live. See, your will to be here, incarnate, is what binds all your cells together. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Mm-hmm. So you have to surrender your will to live to the technology, to that, you can call it AI, it's technical intelligence really. That is the machine that's going to dismantle you and then reconstruct you at the other end. Again, these are the little things that, the little idiosyncrasies that are not being shared by so-called whistleblowers. Yeah, you need to surrender your will, otherwise it's going to get messy at the other end. Yeah. And when I got there, I was greeted by this being who was a shapeshifter, and he was humanoid, but he was also like a catfish type of entity. So Mars was a water world, right? Which is, I find that very interesting, very interesting.
So in this experience, you saw Mars as a water world, or was it like Mars, in the past?
In the past was a water world, yeah. And even though it had mountains and, you know, it was similar to Earth. It was, but it had more, it had less land mass than Earth, and more water on it than Earth. It became what it became because of the planet between Mars and Jupiter being destroyed in the Empire's takeover of our solar system. So that's a story which I'll be telling at the Close Encounters conference coming up in Coffs Harbour next week, about 10 days. So we were to swim in the water and go, it's like a short sort of cliff face, not at 10 metres high, would it be? It's all red rock and a water lagoon. And atmosphere, I was breathing. There's atmosphere on Mars. So I don't know what we're being told by who, but I was breathing air on Mars. And this guy was doing something on there, and I think he was taking his clothes off. And I just went straight in the water because I used to be a competition swimmer, so I felt confident that I could swim in that water. Next thing, he just bilocates, appears right next to me, grabs me, puts me behind him, yeah, and puts his hand in the water like this. And he said, "Don't do that." And I said, "Why?" He said, "I'll show you why." He goes, then we both swam together, and there were these fish swimming around, and they were like, have you ever seen a garf fish? They're really long, slender fish, and they've got long snouts. Think of it like a crocodile snout, but really skinny, but much longer. Yeah. So you got these sorts of fish with big teeth, but they were like 3 meters long. They were really big fish. Some of them maybe longer, 4 meters long. And it was really weird because where the jaw hinges, the eye was inside the hinge. It was a really strange thing. I haven't seen that kind of, because I'm in the water a lot and I used to do a lot of fishing and snorkeling, and you know, I've never seen a fish like that ever, with the eye in the hinge of the jaw. And he said, they'll rip you apart if, you know, if I'm not in the water with you. So they kind of, you can see that they're guarding the entrance to this thing, because we had to go then underneath and then come up in a stairwell inside the crust of the ground. And as I walked up the stairs, it was like a scene out of a movie. There's a bar on the left, and there was a guy shining, like rubbing a glass, just like out of a movie. And it went to the right, and there was a higher deck there. There was a lounge chair along the wall, and it went to like a dining area to the right. And he just plonked me there on the chair. And after a while, I'm just sitting there, I think 5 to 10 minutes. The door opens, which was at the end of the long lounge. There was a door down there. And this female walks through. And I'm not going to say who it was on the camera. But I was summoned by the Matriarch of Mars to have a meeting with her. Now she sits there and stares at me for a while, and then I blanked out. And I don't remember anything except waking up the next day in my bed and freaking out that I was on Mars. I do have residue of some of the installations on Mars. So I don't know how it got into my mind, but But I'll tell you a bit more about that in a sec. But I remember stinking of the water and having to wash me and my sheets because of the water that I was swimming in. Had a very weird smell to it. Yeah, that was uncomfortable. Now, one thing I did learn while I was there was they've got these areas where they calibrate people to the vibration of Mars. You can't just go from one planet to another. So when I would go from, let's say you get abducted by an ET group, right? If they're nice, they will create a reality that's in between their reality and our reality, and it'll be like a meeting place where you can both coexist, and then both parties won't come to too much harm for the period of time that they spend in that field of reality. So Mars, as a planetary being, vibrates at a particular rate. Like we call ours the Schumann Resonance, but it's so much deeper than that. We have vibrational fields of reality for the planet that are just for Earth, uniquely for Earth. No other reality vibrates like this. It's a unique signature for this reality. And it's so beyond any technology that we can measure, right? Because it links in with the rotational spin of our atoms, with the vibration of the molecules, and the molecular vibration determines density of matter, and blah, 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 and on it goes. So they have these realities where they shoot people with nanites and stuff, and if someone's going to be taken to Mars like a scientist, and they're going to be there for a year or whatever, even if you're there for a week, you've got to be calibrated, otherwise everything starts to break down, your organs start to break down. You start to break down on an atomic and molecular level, and then you start experiencing dis-ease. Right? Mm-hmm. And the vibration of that reality will kill you over time. You know, it might be 2 months, it might be 3 months, but you won't last long. Because it's totally different. Reality vibrates at a totally different level. These bodies are made for this world. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's the other thing when you hear people talking about, I went into a craft and with the greys or the reptilians or whatever. It would take me days to get over a lot of those experiences because you get taken into another reality. And there was one time I was with greys who are a very, very disgusting vibration. They were really not nice people. And I remember my whole body just convulsing like this. I'm sitting in the chair and I'm looking around and I'm talking to you like I'm talking now, and my whole body was just continually convulsing to the reaction of my body to that reality. And lucky I wasn't there long, because I was telling them I'm not supposed to be here, you shouldn't have taken me, and then they put me back pretty quickly. So I was only there for like 15 minutes or something. But that's the kind of thing that can happen. So they keep a person there for a month in one area, and that area might be 90% Earth vibration, 10% Mars. Then they'll move them, reassign them to another area, and that'll be 80% Mars, Earth, 20% Mars. So they set up these vibrational modules, yeah, like large areas too. Mm-hmm. Some of them are huge, like a complex, you know. And over time, people get calibrated to Mars, and they can stay there for a long time. Yeah. You
mentioned you met the Mars Maitreya. So how is she different, or is there a connection with the soul?
Looking, like you and I.
Okay.
Totally human looking. In fact, she appeared as a famous person on Earth. That's why I don't want to name the name. And I don't know why. It did not look like, when she appeared, usually I can pick up on these things quite easily. It wasn't a shapeshift. It wasn't an implant into my mind. It was the person. Mm-hmm. And I still can't totally figure it out.
Mm-hmm. When you say she's the matriarch, is she an expression of the planetary soul energy of Mars?
Oh no, Mars is a male being. Mm-hmm. It's a male planet. This one's a female planet. The planet that got taken out between Mars and Jupiter was another male planet. Yeah, it's a big deal. What happened in our solar system? It's all about Earth was the target.
Right.
Yeah, the takeover of our solar system was all about taking control of Earth. and the solar system. Like the sun's a really big deal.
Well, we'll be getting to that very, very shortly. Just one final question about Mars. You said something about the facilities on Mars, that you knew or saw some of the facilities.
Well, these are the ones I just explained to you about how they calibrate the people. Now, I don't remember how I saw these facilities, being totally honest with you. I don't know how I saw them. I just remember seeing them. I remember being shown them, but I don't remember how. Yeah, I don't. When a lot of these experiences happen, there's always memory screening that goes on. And sometimes your consciousness or your mind will break through parts of it, and other times it won't. Okay. Yeah, sometimes, like I've had a lot of experiences where it's just blank. And people have tried to put me under regression and they can't. So I'm like a walking encyclopedia of stuff. And I'm just, and occasionally my being lets me access memories.
Well, let's go a little bit further out in Jupiter and Saturn. Have you ever had any experiences concerning those planets, their moons, temporal anomalies near them?
No, I just know who Saturn is, the incarnation of, as a planetary being. That's the God entity, of the God of religions, the Father God of religions, has incarnated into our solar system as a planetary being. All planets are beings. We're all planets and stars out there. You know. The whole construct of the grand cosmic arena is a co-created experience. It's not, you know, God created everything and we're just these humans. And maybe we have a spirit. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. So Saturn is the God entity, and that's why we have been locked into these weird time codes, and it's about that entity that's trying to take control of the solar system and alter the timeline that we are in.
Okay. Well, we'll be talking about the whole Saturn Moon matrix pretty soon. But just to finish up this part, this section, do you know anything about Nazi Germany working with extraterrestrials, creating bases on the Moon, Mars, and beyond?
Yeah. Not through direct experience. Like I wasn't there at the time. You see, you can access knowledge. Some people do it through something that's called the Akashic Records. Yeah, I don't do that. I just want to make that point clear. If I want to know about the moon, I'll connect with the moon. If I want to know about Earth and humanity, I'll actually connect with my beingness and integrate and become one with the Earth and the collective human essence. The Akashic Records is a multi-dimensional state-run library. So I'm not interested in getting in my car and driving down the street to a state library and thinking I'm going to get the knowledge from there. It's not how it works. And the Akashic Records is exactly that, but in a multi-dimensional sense. You'll get a lot more knowledge from there than you do from here, but that's not how the natural order operates. That's how the false light matrix operates. The natural order operates with unity with the prime creators of realities. And you get it straight from the being, and then you access all timelines and you access everything that ever occurred in that reality. That's the natural way.
Okay, so you don't have any kind of direct knowledge of that whole kind of Nazi Germany space connection at all? It's just something you've heard about, or it's in the...
No, I have some. And in my recent talk of the UFO research group, to do with the Vril Society, the one thing I got loud and clear, and I've known for a long time, over 10 years, was that Dietrich Eckart was the private mentor of Adolf Hitler, and through the Thule Society or the Thule Society, and he groomed Hitler for that position. So I got that by connecting into the dual society with my beingness. I'm not a member of it or anything like that. I don't belong to any secret society at all. My father was a Freemason, and I went through a lot of work to stop any of, because I've got 2 boys, and these sort of societies think they like to own your bloodline, but they don't own my blood, and they do not own my children's blood. Nobody does. So I've done all that work. But in having a father and a bloodline immersed in that, I can access a lot through my genetics as well, back through time. And we have the capacity to actually tune into a lot of things. So the real society and Hitler were connected to a group of extraterrestrials from Aldebaran. That the Aldebaranian connection is understood in the secret military complex behind the scenes. They took control of NASA a fair time ago. There's a group which goes, you got the Moon-Mars path. There's another group that goes Aldebaran, and they go to a group of Orion Nordics. Now, here is where it gets really interesting. The factional war that's going on, there's more than one factional war, but the main one that's been raging in the military-industrial complex and the secret space program for some time now has been between this Nordic group and the reptilian Dracos. You need to understand who these Nordics are to understand the hatred between the 2 groups. So the Nordics come across as being very advanced, very enlightened, very spiritual, very loving, very caring. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I've been abducted by them as well. They're very sterile, they're very analytical. They're good at putting on a facade. And the reason they do that is because they have an image complex. So who are they and why do they behave this way? One group of Draco reptilians, because the chronological order of evolution in the grand cosmic arena is the insectoids were here first, then came the Dracos, then came the reptilians, and then from the reptilians shot off into, even from the Dracos there was the raptors, and then you've got all the mammalians and cetaceans and everything that came after the reptilians. Because in the early days of the grand cosmic arena, it was a really rough environment. So all the types of bodies that we used to incarnate into to have incarnational experiences were hard exoskeletal constructs. And then over time, as the reality softened, so did the bodies. So the Dracos are the ancestors of the reptilians. Now there's this reptilian Draco alliance going on, and there's a faction in there that decided to go around marauding all the best genetics available in the grand cosmic arena. And then when they learnt about the fractal nature of our galaxy, they came into the galaxy and started marauding all the genetics in the galaxy as well. Because of the fractal nature. So it's like you can access more from less, right? And then when it came to the Earth humans, well, they lost their shit over that, because we got babies that are born in this world that have access to more life force than any god.
Right. Well, I think
because of our fractal nature. So the Draco reptilians created this magnificent specimen of body, and it's this like an angelic looking humanoid, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, sometimes emerald-eyed. You get all these different variations, but extremely physically beautiful, what we would call beautiful and attractive. flawless, no blemishes anywhere, perfect symmetry in the physical structure, mostly. The ones higher up in the order, they embody all that. And very powerful beings, like with mind energy and consciousness, incredibly powerful. You really need to respect who it is you're dealing with when you're in their presence. And so the purists of the reptilian Draco Empire saw this as an abhorrent development to their species and called them all traitors. And that started the war between. So it's like the Hatfields and the McCoys. Right? So you got this reptilian Draco faction fighting against this Nordic group, and both of them are plugged into our military-industrial complex behind the scenes, and we have been dragged into their fucking family feud on a galactic level and even a cosmic level. And I wish people would wake the fuck up and see what is really happening in our world, Michael. Really, I know I've got really intense just then because, you know, I've had to deal with this stuff behind the scenes a lot in my cosmopolitical and exopolitical responsibilities that I have here in this world. And these people are so caught up in their family feud that they can't see anything. And all they want is domination. There's so much hatred between the two, right? And each one wants to dominate us. Now, there's good Nordics out there that don't come from that origin, and there's good Draco Reptilians out there that are really awesome people too, who have in full reverence of Earth and her humanity, right? That actually have been a part of the creation of this world from, you know, billions of years ago. So we need to understand what has happened to our world and our political structures, our governing structures, our theocratic structures, which are the ones that control the political. Right? Mm-hmm. Behind every geopolitical model is a theocratic model. And it's been that way. Church and state have never, ever been separate.
Well, that's a good place for us to pause in this part and come back with the whole Saturn Moon matrix and how that leads to this controlled reality. So we'll be back. Thank you, George.
Thanks, Mark.